ka bolwetse jono ja corona jo ile gore bo gabilse dilo ga se kobo ka letshoba o tla itsegela jalo gore mo nako ya gompieno tauto o se tsa tsene mo dikagong tsa botswana television go tla go buisa setšhaba le go buisa ba dikgang di bolang gano mme ka go se se ba ga makere ke tsene mo teng ga dikago tsa botswana auditorium ruto gore tauto na o re setšhaba mo lesa o ntse jang ka bolwetse jo ja coronavirus mo ta itsegela gore mo nako ya gompieno go na le botona ba ba leng mo teng mone gape go boletse gape gore setšhaba se ntse se ne dikgato dimitara di kana bongwe kgotsa bobedi jaaka o bona ba phatlaletsa mo teng jaana go supa gore tota o le hatsa botswana le tsa tsia tsone tota di kakgelo tsa World Health Organization gore se ntse re nne ka tsele re rileng re itshware ka tsele tsinya go kganela mogare le go ana mo hatsa botswana mo ta itse mo nako ya gompieno mogare ono wa coronavirus ga o tshwara kgotsa go tshwara mongwe ana la bolwetse jwa go nna mogare o setse o itse gore o setse o tshwarisa mahatsa a tshwana bo China bo America bo UK bo Italy bo Spain ba le gore ba setse ba itebotse dintsho tsa palo go godimo ba ka batho ba le gore ba tsene ke mogare wa coronavirus mme mo nako ya gompieno itsegela gore tautona o tshwanetse ra ba buisa setšhaba a buisa ba bogedi kgang ba ta mmotsa dipotso ka bolwetse jo gore sa tsa botswana le ipaakantsa go le kae le gore re le go botswana tota re ipaakantsa go le kae go tla go kganela bolwetse jwa coronavirus mme ka go sa dio se ba gama kere magatsene mo teng ga auditorium le wena o to re itse jaaka tautona a le buisa setšhaba.
The Permanent Secretary to the President, Mr. Elias Mpedi Mahosi. I'm mentioning the middle name simply because I've known him for years, so it just comes out automatically. And the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry for Presidential Affairs, Governance and Public Administration, Mr. Tiso Ramudimosi. And I need to mention also, for need to know, the Director of Health Services, Dr. Malaki Tsipa Yahai. Ladies and gentlemen and colleagues of the media, welcome to this very important, albeit brief, press conference. Please allow me at this stage to call upon His Excellency the President to make an introductory statement, whereafter we will interact. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kindly be seated. Director of Ceremonies, the Honorable Minister for Presidential Affairs, Governance and Public Administration, the Minister of Health and Wellness, the Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry, Your Worship the Mayor of the City of Gaborone, the Permanent Secretary, the President, and other senior government officials, members of the Fourth Estate, Bom Malibora, Balinghano, Kilumisa Gapula. Pula de moi for Golait. Kilumisa Gapula. Now, Pula hai Hawi Bita hai Baki Corona. I'm very glad to be here this morning to talk to you about what we've been doing in government. And I must hasten to say that because of circumstances beyond our control, this press conference will not be as long as usual, but I promise you next week we'll be back and we'll spend more time to engage more intimately. And the reason for it, as I suspect, is that you're probably, as the country is, on edge about coronavirus. Agir. And so I will choose to begin to talk about coronavirus over and above the statements we have made so far. First, to state that we've been watching coronavirus since December 2019 as it manifested itself or broke out in the People's Republic of China. And to date, we put together a committee. It had been initially managed by a high-level committee of senior officials in the Ministry of Health. And more recently, I put together a committee to heighten attention to it and our response that I chaired. And this committee is made up of the following so far. I sit in it and chair it. His Honor the Vice President is a member, the Minister of Health, Minister for Presidential Affairs, Minister of International Affairs and Cooperation, the Minister of Defense, Justice Security, Minister of Finance and Economic Development, the Minister of Nationality, Immigration and Gender, the Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry, the Minister of Transport and Communications, the Perm Secretary to the President, the Attorney General, the Commander BDF, Commissioner of Mozambique Police, Perm Secretary, Ministry of Health, Perm Secretary, Government Communications, Mr. Sinyi, Director of Health Services, Dr. Tsipagai, and the technical leadership is provided by none other than Dr. Masupu and Professor Alexandra and others acting under their tutelage. We also have roped in the Chief Executive Officer of the CAAB, the Civil Aviation Authority of Botswana. That makes the high-end committee. And the consultants in developing further the plan of response are putting together the architecture of the subcommittees relevant to the response of these, and we shall talk more about those next week. Suffice to say that the committee is in existence. We have met twice. We first met on Monday the 16th, this past Monday, and we met again yesterday. And at every meeting, issues are escalated for decision taking. And so among the decisions that you may be aware of that we took yesterday was the decision to close schools on Friday and let learners go home, primarily out of a regard for sustaining or maintaining social distancing. Coronavirus or COVID-19 essentially focus on strategic planning, public awareness, prevention, preparedness, response, recovery, and activating our health systems to specifically deal with cases of COVID-19 as and when they are identified. That's our focus as we respond to this threat. To date, there are no known cases in Botswana. Please mark my words, no known cases. I'm not saying there are no cases. There are no known cases. So we put the committee together and the response team, which will continuously and iteratively review and plan out for the response to this pandemic way beyond what we initially were focusing on, which was health. And in the response, we will continuously be churning out guidance to the public and education to the public. I need not mention how important a stakeholder you are, including the private sector, and we're waiting for the consultations of the Minister of Investment with the private sector for them to join the high-level committee. Over and above this, over and above the high-level national committee, meeting and deciding yesterday on the closure of schools, as I stated, we also decided on to cover two key areas, travel and social distancing. And I want to specify that a little bit more today. All travelers arriving in Botswana from high-risk countries classified as having local transmission will be isolated for care if there's a conditional, if they have symptoms of COVID-19, while those without symptoms will be quarantined for 14 days. All residents on home quarantine are not allowed to leave their homes for any reason whatsoever. They will be required to monitor their own health and report any symptoms to health authorities by phone. If they need to leave for medical reasons, they're advised to call health authorities for assistance. Government's decision to suspend all external trips by public officers, including the hosting of international events and conferences, still stands until further notice. And one of the major reasons is because in countries that have recently experienced COVID-19 cases where it hadn't presented before, it's evident on the main that this was as a result of inbound travel of persons who carried the virus. To minimize the risk of contracting and possible spreading of COVID-19, members of the public are further advised to postpone non-essential local travel. Non-essential local travel. So skip the wedding, skip the funeral, skip the visit to your aunt, postpone and contain yourselves and others. To ensure the continued safety of people at funerals and memorial services, funerals should be brief and are to last hopefully no more than 2 hours. The briefer they are, the better. Organizers are to ensure easy access to hand cleaning with water and soap. And it's advisable that if you suspect there may not be enough water and soap, use your 2 pockets, carry a bottle of water in the one and some soap in the other. Bring your own. This is when it's real. During burials, strict hand washing and surface cleaning is recommended for all equipment used, such as shovels, microphones, etc., etc. To further minimize risk, no food shall be provided to those in attendance. No food. So you either eat before you go or remain there briefly so you can go back and eat. But make sure you wash thoroughly before you enter your home and eat. On social distancing, government has directed the total suspension of public gatherings of more than 100 people, which was imposed on the 16th of March, which is Monday, for a 30-day period subject to further review. These include religious gatherings, sporting events, conferences, wedding celebrations, funerals, nightclubs and bars, music concert, parties, and any other such gathering. Any other such gathering that might have people of those numbers gathered in one place. Members of the public are also advised to maintain a distance of 1 to 2 meters between individual persons and a maximum of 50 individuals everywhere, including at the following places: banks, restaurants, including take-out restaurants, supermarkets and shops, pharmacies, post offices, and government service departments, for example, road, transport, immigration, civil registration, hospitals, clinics, as well as police stations, amongst others. So unfortunately, you're going to see some very unusual things. You might be queuing or being queued outside your normal area of being queued. We ask for your patience and resilience. To ensure the continued safety of other users of health facilities, individuals who have cold symptoms such as cough, fever, sore throat, and have had contact with returning travelers are advised not to use any form of public transport. When using private vehicles or walking on foot, they should alert health authorities on arrival before entering the health facility. So the very traditional pattern of heralding yourself before you enter somebody's home, as Tswana, may now become in vogue in the wake of coronavirus. Koko, ke hanu, ke a go thola, and they'd come and help you. The latest World Health Organization COVID situational report indicates that the number of affected African countries as at yesterday, Tuesday 17th, so day before yesterday, Tuesday 17th, 2020, had reached 30. That's already a majority of members of the AU. This is worrisome because, as I have indicated before, it is only a matter of time before we are directly affected as a country. With regard to the situation in Botswana, to date, 24 suspected cases have been tested and 21 have tested negative. 3 are awaiting their results. Government continues to monitor closely the evolution of the COVID-19 outbreak. I wish to inform you that government has already capacitated the National Health Laboratory to conduct tests for COVID-19 locally. The lab can now test between 50 to 150 specimens per day, with results ready within 24 to 72 hours. Furthermore, 21 laboratory scientists have received training from the WHO on specimen collection and shipment across the districts, while 6 more are currently being trained. The government has also received viral transport media to ensure collection of quality specimen. The National Health Laboratory has also finalized a contract with the Botswana Bureau of Standards to facilitate the servicing and maintenance of biosafety and pipettes, which are key to the COVID-19 testing laboratory. The government communication strategy. For effective communication, information, and education, structures have been established, and the following are some of the ongoing activities. Regular community and press briefings through available mass media, and you know the most prolific has been the Minister of Health every morning. Public education and information dissemination on COVID-19 through bulletins, leaflets, public notices, among others, informing all people arriving in Botswana about the expectations of the government of Botswana as far as COVID-19 prevention and management are concerned, including the need for screening, management of suspected cases, and, as I said, the Minister of Health continuously updates the nation about the status of pandemic, both locally and globally. I also want to take this opportunity to discourage members of the public from disseminating false and unconfirmed information about COVID-19. And please be aware of the various pieces of legislation in governing such conduct. I want to urge you to continue helping government to disseminate truthful information about the virus so that members of the public can take appropriate measures to protect themselves. We continue to monitor the situation in all parts of the world, particularly where we have Botswana citizens. My government stands ready to respond and support them accordingly as the need arises. In conclusion, or before I conclude, let me further state that we have 70 ventilators at the Sekitumile Masisi Teaching Hospital, and the intention is to increase our capacity. We are also intending to improve the staffing situation as part of the response. We have made a determination that prison visits will no longer be permitted until further notice. The initial budget allocated to deal with this outbreak was 31 million pula out of the 50 million pula requested. To date, 22 million pula of that has been spent, Budget revisions as the plan continues to roll out are ongoing, and estimates to date are projected to be around 500 million pula. Do we have the money for this? We have no money lying around, but this money we will find. And basically it would mean that some things will have to be forgone. At this moment, we have not declared this a national disaster, nor have we invoked the state of emergency provisions as in the Constitution. We have treated this as still being a public emergency as declared by the World Health Organization, because we have no case and will continue to monitor the situation. Initial measures on travel and social distancing are in place, as stated, in order to attempt to slow down the progression of the virus from wherever it might come. And these measures will continue to be modified with time. The next logical stepping up in the response will be a declaration of a national disaster if there's evidence of uncontrolled local transmission. And ultimately, of course, will be a state of emergency. Many questions have been asked about whether we are intending to form a cushioning of Botswana businesses in this time. Financially, this is part of the ongoing evolution of the plan. And yes, we cannot ignore the deleterious effects that this coronavirus is having on the economy and livelihoods, particularly in the transport, logistics, tourism, hospitality industry, including other SMME activities. I was talking to some fruit sellers a few days ago, and they were telling me they've noticed a decline of willingness to buy fruits from where they vend. We will enforce through the provisions of the law, immigration law, the Public Health Act primarily, and those who will enforce our regular law enforcers. And part of our regular law enforcers are the good citizens of this country, who far outnumber the not so good citizens or residents of this country. And the question often asked is how long we expect this to continue. We expect this to be around for the rest of the winter season, and hopefully would taper off. But your guess is as good as mine, because a lot of it is human behavior determined. In conclusion, I'd like to urge every one of us to frequently, thoroughly wash our hands with soap and clean water or hand sanitizer where available. Cover your nostrils, or commonly known as noses, and mouths when sneezing with a flexed elbow or tissue or handkerchief. Avoid direct contact with anyone with cold or flu symptoms. Do not handshake, do not hug, do not kiss. It might be do not kiss at all times. I don't know of anybody who has suffered death because they did not kiss. I'd want to stop there for the coronavirus. And I don't know how well we're doing for time. I might pause so that I can take questions, and then we can get to the other issues. I thank you.
We are free to ask questions. The usual is to identify yourself. I see the hand of Dikarabo. During the process of this, His Excellency might just decide to stand on the podium and point you out. That is totally in order. But I now see Mr. Dikarabo Ramadubu wanting to pose a question. We'll take 3 at a time.
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency. Morning. My question is, what are the lessons learned this far? What is it that, in your opinion, as the head of state, do you think we should have done or said earlier than now? And secondly, since we are a country that has limited resources, have we asked for help anywhere else? I thank you.
That was 3 questions. That represents 3 people. There's a question right in front of me here. And you'll be next, sir. Identify yourself.
My name is Talefan Charles from Mekhi. My question is on the economy. You actually briefly touched on this. What responses is your government preparing, or what options do you have to help the economy through this impact? And we saw in 2016 the government tapping on the resources with the economic stimulus plan. Are you planning on lifting the economy by tapping on resources, on reserves?
Yes, sir.
What's why I'm now and what Tautona Ruta Luaka Ripa Kansenga on Hollands COVID-19. Me Renzernali Lusumole Tonamo go Makavisana ring. I don't know Aruna Van or Bamari Tata or Lipatanz or Kai or Nori. Jack Carloansa COVID-19. Merenale challenge Tona poaching in where it threatens our national security. Melonivia Canary in the Twelete. Yan national sena gore sebetsa sena gore se ka tsana mo rona go mo gare wa tsana ka bone ba ene gore ba putsha gore o ka ngo ka tsibusa setšhaba gore re ipanga ntse go le ka herbetse go kganyenyewe ene gore we have seen even that some of our batswana ka rona ba se ba lathegetswe ke matshelo ka go lwantsha kganyo ke a leboga.
Thank you. I'm going to give His Excellency the President a chance to respond, but let me point out that we have now the microphones on the aisle, along the aisle, are working. Please, when we point you out for questions, walk up there so that we minimize the use of the roving microphone. Your Excellency, unless you want to take more questions.
No, thank you very much. Redi Karabo Ramadubu, what are the lessons learned so far? There are always lessons in life to learn. And there's always greater wisdom in hindsight. And in this instance, there is no difference to other major calamities. But I must emphasize that thus far, at least as far as I'm concerned, I have come to learn that this is potentially the greatest, biggest, most complicated threat we have faced so far. And one draws lessons from a threat similar, which had similar or close to the same epidemiological characteristics, HIV and AIDS. Closer to HIV/AIDS, perhaps with less severity because it involved other species of animals than human, was a cattle lung disease. And the responses to these three require somewhat different strategies. First, the cattle lung one was a cattle disease, so and it spread, had no cure. And so the ultimate sacrifice, if it was to be made, which was made, was to contain and eliminate. If you recall, when HIV started in this country, debates, emotive as they were, even on the floor of Parliament, some were calling for some containment strategy, isolation, while more sober minds were warning of the potential harm caused by stigma without a cure. And yes, salvation came from the international community through biomedical interventions, supplementing the human behavior education campaigns that were mounted. That was HIV/AIDS. And so we as a country have a lot of skill in managing these. Our lead technocrat to respond to our COVID-19, or two leads, one is a vet surgeon, Dr. Masupu, who's been involved in these, both the cattle disease and the human condition of HIV, and his colleague, Professor Alexander, who has immense scientific and epidemiological knowledge. So we've learned to respond appropriately by knowing what is, by targeting what is, containing what is, and all that laced around the compulsion to prevent. But one of the biggest lessons that I have learned as president of a poor country in this space and time with limited resources is that, ultimately, we are all going to have to sacrifice. And my cabinet and I stand ready to be exemplary in this. We are all going to have to sacrifice if we are to save our humankind, known as the citizens of Botswana. And secondly, being president of a third world, fairly poor country, our ultimate salvation, if left to ourselves, will be ourselves and how we behave. Because we don't have the sophistication of the industries and the scientific prowess to even manufacture these testing kits. So much as we want to ramp them up and test everybody, if we are faced with the ultimate test, we've got to rely on ourselves to save ourselves. And that should be a major attribute to the strategy that we formulate. We must be empowered, and empowered to know what to do. Have we asked for help anyway? Sure. we've asked for help and we've begun to receive help. And among the first responders was the Chinese government, with the donation of a variety of kits. The Minister of Health will, if he's able to share that, otherwise we will share it with you next week as the list goes on. We've asked for help. WHO was among the first responders. In typical fashion with their remit, they gave us a technical competence and knowledge. We've asked for help. Botswana and Botswana were among the first responders. They were curious, anxious, and wanting to, and embraced. And some stepped forward, Botswana and residents, and wanted to play their part in the resolution of this. We've even gotten help that we didn't ask for, but we welcome. My phone doesn't stop receiving all manner of commentary, and I try my best to read as much of it as possible. Some of it is not very pleasant to read, but I still read it. Because people are efficacious. They'd want to step in. And my expectation is that we will continue to ask for help, and we will continue to receive help as we are part of humanity. And we too have helped many before. Talifan Charles of Mechi, what response is the government preparing in the economic space akin to the ESP of 2016? And are we planning to economically aid the economy? The answer is yes, we are planning to. The specificities will emerge as the plan evolves and we fully analyze those sectors that are affected. As I said in my statement, among the very obvious apparent ones who have already felt the effects of this are the cancellations in bookings that many have felt. And obviously travel, because we restricted that. And the next, of course, will be the prohibitions we put in place are going to affect those who are in the business of doing that. I mean, you can imagine what the small SMME combi driver who drops off kids to school will be affected. Those who run schools for a return will be affected. But it is our business to analyze those and respond as best we can. But I must continue to underline that at some point we all have to chip in and sacrifice. And the private sector too will be incurring costs that it wouldn't otherwise have anticipated. It might start off as a boom, but it will taper off. But it's very important to keep the economy going. And that's where the protective measures, sanitizing and social distancing and constant information dissemination so the economy is producing is important. Mr. Meso, are you still the president? Your Excellency. You iterate that we still have serious challenges of poaching in the Okavango. I could not agree with you more. There are serious problems of poaching, and you raise the potential risk of these activities possibly enhancing the transmission or exposing us to the threat of transmission via COVID-19. Poaching exposes us to the transmission of everything that we don't want, because poaching is a criminal element, activity. It's criminal, but it's also transboundary criminality. And poachers do not bear a spear or a knobkerrie or a knife like some of those who break into households. Poachers bear sophisticated arms, and poachers are sufficiently radicalized to kill. So they're dangerous. And we put an army in place to defend this country. So any intruder is an enemy. And unfortunately, as with any war, there are casualties. Sadly, we lost one of our finest soldiers recently who died in the line of duty undertaking the protection of our territorial integrity and therefore defending Botswana and paid the ultimate price with his life to the bullet of a poacher, which is an enemy of Botswana. And so everybody associated with poaching, it doesn't matter who they are and where they are, must be seen as a poacher. And anybody speaking on behalf of poaching or celebrating poaching must be seen for what they are. There's also white-collar poaching. When they sit in the place of luxury and benefit from poaching. So the best response I can give you is really through the defense of our territorial integrity. You can't sit down poachers and teach them social distancing. Because if you attempted that, they eliminate you. They don't want to hear you. They want the tusk or the rhino horn or whatever else they're poaching. So I'm afraid our response will continue to be battling poachers and poaching. But we are also ready through intelligence gathering and other means to remove any risk that we find in the Delta that we think might be aiding and abetting poaching. And so there will be developments that will show that. I haven't heard of the test results of any poachers with regard to COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Since I think we discerned that His Excellency would probably want to share other issues of national interest, let us take three more questions, three short questions on the coronavirus, and then allow His Excellency to move from Commander of the War Committee on Coronavirus to Commander of the country. There are other issues as well. Yes, questions?
So,
Ma'am?
Can we ask the Minister of Health to buttress that question on health and the other one or two things?
Yes, Your Excellency, definitely. Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Lemogang Kwape.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies, Your Excellency, honorable ministers here present. I just wanted to highlight a few things, in particular to what His Excellency wanted me to talk to, the help that we are getting. We have development partners, but I want to start off with the help that we've recently received from the Chinese. They've given us personal protection equipment. I must emphasize here that these PPE, as they are commonly known, are in short supply. But the Chinese government have been kind enough to give us some of this equipment. His Excellency also talked about lessons learned. We have learned quite a lot from the Chinese, the way they managed the epidemic. They were the epicenter of the epidemic. Today, the epicenter is in Europe and is spreading the world over. But if there's one lesson, is that we've learned from the Chinese. And it comes primarily from five things: detection, reporting, isolation, case management, and communication. And the government of Botswana, through the leadership of His Excellency, is trying by all means to mimic all that the Chinese did in terms of their management of the COVID-19. Other development partners that have come to our help is the WHO. They've always ever offered technical support. The CDC, they provided, CDC is Center for Disease Control in the United States. They've offered us the reagents that we are using. And maybe emphasize here that the testing that we are doing in country, as His Excellency has indicated, is also supported by WHO. We've started testing locally, but because of protocols, we still have to send samples to South Africa for standardization. And we believe that in the not so distant future, we will be able to do testing on our own. And I must emphasize here that we are one of the few in Africa who are at this readiness level. At the moment, because this is a fast developing issue, we have 17 samples that are lined up today to be tested. And I trust the technical team at the National Health Lab that they are doing a fantastic job. I also want to thank Your Excellency, the media, for always communicating. And I want to thank the members of the public for always inquiring about this COVID-19. This is the social capital that we have, and I think we should leverage, as His Excellency was saying, on this social capital so that we can defeat this pandemic. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Minister for Trade and Investment, Mayor Peggy Serame, would like to give us some more valuable information. Thank you.
Thank you, Rasisini, Your Excellency, Honorable Ministers, the Mayor of the City of Gaborone, the President of Business Botswana, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Just to emphasize a few points. First, speaking to the response and the support, just to emphasize that yesterday we had the SADC Council of Ministers meeting, at which one of the agenda items was the response to COVID-19. And we've agreed on a coordinated response at SADC level. There's a technical committee that is already working, that is going to assist us and to guide us in terms of the protocols and how we can leverage each other's support and strengths in dealing with this outbreak. And also that the local private sector here has also offered their support, and we'll be continue to work with them to see how we can assist each other and address this. The other issue that I just wanted to highlight, say, is that we are monitoring our behaviors in terms of purchasing, because there were concerns, especially at the beginning of this week, that we seem to be holding certain products and supplies. We will be monitoring that, and if need be, we will intervene. Secondly, related to that is the pricing. Also, we will be monitoring price changes, especially in those items that we all need, and we should have enough supplies to ensure that no one buys in bulk at the expense of other people. And even in terms of the pricing, if we seem to see a surge suddenly in prices that is unreasonable, we may be forced to intervene. I thought I should emphasize those. And lastly, to reiterate what has already been said in terms of ongoing assessments, in terms of what is happening to the private sector and what we can do to support them. We are continuing to do that on a daily basis, and we will be communicating what we put in place in terms of a response and support to the business community. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Yes, 3 questions on the coronavirus. Then we hand over to His Excellency to respond to those questions and go on to the other issues. In terms of time, we might see thereafter. But 3 short questions, I'm not minimizing the graveness, severity of this COVID-19. May, identify yourself to the microphone, please.
Rachel Sibinyane go tswa ko Duma FM. Potso ya me ke gore, in the eventuality that we do confirm a case, how will we change gears? Is a total lockdown a considerable possibility?
Sorry, can you repeat? My pen stopped working. Rachel.
Yes, from Duma FM. I was asking gore, in the eventuality that we do confirm a case mo Botswana, how are we going to change gears? Is a total down a considerable possibility? Thank you. Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Rachel. You, sir, and we'll hand over to His Excellency. To the microphone, please, along the aisle. The moment I point at you, I request you walk to the microphone. We are live on radio, television, all social media platforms that are switched on to us.
My name is Tobo from the Sunday Standard. So much emphasis has been put on washing hands and general hygiene. And I believe it's important that every household should have running water. We all know that the Water Utilities Corporation has been on a rampage. So I wanted to ask HE, maybe it's possible to have the Water Utilities Corporation maybe take it easy on disconnections so that all households can have running water. Thank
you. Third and last question here. Yes, sir, please. Identify yourself.
Yes, I'm Godwin Sebina from Bula Power. Mine is going to be mainly concerned on the creative industry. Mr. President, our industry really rely on venue hires, artists, decorations, and so forth on. Are we going to see, like in the France, whereby the government is helping to wage us utility bills and rental bills? And secondly, our artists 100% rely on music. Are we going to see our radio stations playing 100% of our airplay so that royalties can help pay our artists? And lastly, can you maybe address the issue of the affected institutions as per schools closing, as it caused a lot of chaos in the country, whereby people did not understand what the second pointer meant when it said affected institutions. Thank you.
With your permission, Excellency.
Yes. Let me begin while I write the last bit of the question. Ask Minister Kwape to say what he missed out in his bit.
Thank you, Excellency. On direction of His Excellency, I have announced that before this winter season, we will be offering flu shots to the general public. Arrangements of how that will be done and the modalities thereof will be communicated in due course. The flu shots are a usual occurrence. Those who afford them do get flu shots, but we have decided, because of this COVID interplay, we should segregate the two, get people to go for flu shots, and then deal with the COVID as and when it presents itself. I thank you, Excellency.
Thank you very much. Rachel. Gwen. All right. We likely to see a total shutdown. If need be, and I hope it doesn't occur, we experience severe escalation of cases, localized transmission, you lock down. Our technical experts in the further development of the plan are at a stage now where they are zoning the country and zoning towns and villages in readiness for the ultimate, if it were to happen, which is confining people to a particular area and dealing with the problem there. And the best thing is, if it can't stop, you stop it. And stopping it means stopping people. So I would very much hope that we would get over this without reaching that stage. But like the Minister said, that we're drawing lessons from those who have experienced this severity and seem to have overcome it or are overcoming it. China, we would do that. And you can see where there wasn't the readiness to shut down or lock down particular areas. It spread like wildfire. So we're also observing that. Tobo, Sunday Standard asked W Water Utilities Corporation to slow down, you said, the disconnections. No, we're going to make them stop disconnections, not slow down. We're going to make them stop disconnections. Pula Power, Resibina, relying on venues, hire and artists. You also asked about the playing of 100% local music on radio to enhance royalties. And you also asked about the clarification of the school closure, the second part. The response to the economic impacts is being worked through two ministries, or three ministries in this case, Presidential Affairs, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, primarily working on this under the leadership of the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning. He should have been here, but unfortunately he's got a significant engagement in Parliament to do with the very budget that we need. So he couldn't be here, but a response will come. I am not at this point able to speak to those specific details. Safe to say that there will be a response. The school, I'm not sure which one you said was causing a misunderstanding, but let me tell you what I've understood us to be saying. Schools are expected to be closing on Friday, right? When schools close, children go home, stay home, all right? And but the schools are managed. Schools closing, children going home, does not mean that the staff who run the schools go home. Those who are learning are students, and those who manage those places work there. I'll tell you the rationale behind doing that. It's very simple, and it relates to Rachel's question. Ultimately, if we are to have a lockdown, if we are to enhance our capacity to quarantine, to contain, to isolate, if we are to enhance our productive capacities, however rudimentary, to make beds or tents, etc., if we are to care for some of the most vulnerable in controlled spaces, schools remain an option. Not all schools, some schools. So in closing the schools, it's to deal with the social distancing in part, but it's also to ready the schools for the ultimate eventuality if it were to occur. Because we've come to admit that our health systems are not as strong as some health systems in other countries. If, for instance, 7,000 people, 10,000 people needed care in a health facility, we would not be able to cope with that. We also need to ramp up our auxiliary health service providers, because our doctors, our nurses, radiologists, pharmacists, the ones that have been prepared for a relatively healthy nation, would not be enough. So emptying the facilities of learning, assessments taking place, zoning and identified by our technical experts across government and the private sector and civil society will enable us to be able to use some of those facilities for other purposes that we might need as appropriate. And so part of the budget that's been raised, and instruction has already been issued to the Ministry of Local Government, for instance, to fix some of the most obvious things that need to be fixing, and one of which is the provision of water. I must take advantage of this and say that some of our biggest challenges to do with water are really contracting, procurement issues. We have the budget, we've always had the budget for fixing our water problems, but many things are in the courts. Many things are contested. Some service providers are not providing the service to the standards required, and so there isn't the delivery. And quite frankly, there's also a lot of corruption, not just in the water sector, in other places. I mean, if you look at this program, individual backlog eradication in the primary schools, where many toilets were built. Remember, ablution blocks, waterborne. Go to them and find out how many are working. And it's not because all the kids destroyed them. They were poorly constructed, poorly supervised, and approved for payment by people who are employed to so do, if it is right to do that. But a lot of things clearly went wrong. And so in trying to deal with the history of some of these things, unfortunately we get caught up in coronavirus. But our commitment to fight corruption should never be underestimated. Molato hauboli. A mulatto doesn't rot.
Thank you, Excellency. Your Excellency, would you like to share any other issues of national interest, or allow a couple more questions?
Those are questions. Time doesn't permit. These are questions.
His Excellency has allowed more questions, so let's take three. Is that you, Professor? And then the lady right at the back there, and the lady right here. Let's start with Professor. Come to the microphone. Short questions, please.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, President of Association there is bana le go tahela ka di-plane bo ba lenda mo ko makgobokgobong a la rona le bo ba tswa ba tsamaya mme kana we are now fighting a disease, and most it comes from the richest. What steps are we going to take as a country to ensure that
that was a question. Professor, the reason I stood, I knew you were going to ask two questions. Please do not hoard. No hoarding. Please take a seat. You probably will get a chance. When you say three questions, we mean three people. The lady at the back, thank you.
Good morning, I am Senel from Gabs FM. My question is with regards to equipment in scanning goods. that we continuously receive from affected countries. Is Botswana well equipped to scan goods? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. My name is Gino Lisitsa from Yarna FM, and I thank His Excellency for a comprehensive report and his team. But I noticed that His Excellency didn't mention anything about animals, and as we all know by now, coronavirus can be transmitted from animals to people. So what is in place to manage animals? And then the issue of schools, what is in place to manage the children who are now being sent home? Will they not get restless, especially if we're going to wait out the winter? That's over 3 months of children at home. Thank you.
You've been nicely brief. I'll give a bonus of one more question before His Excellency comes. Rachel, you've asked before, and my brother, you've asked before. Any new fact? Yes, ma'am.
Dumelang ke bidwa ke ba go tswa ke FM ne go twa tautona bua ka visits go di prisons ke bata go botsa gore the courts of laws are still operating and bona batho ba tswang go di prison ba ntse ba ya gone go di khoteng go irwa yang ka khanya teng. Another question e le gore related to that gona le ba sepodisi ga bua sepe ka ba sepodisi and ba remisa mo ditseleng gona di ditami go irwa yang ka khanya teng a re ntse re totsa mare ra mo iswa ditami mo tsela.
His Excellency is taking some notes, and then when he's ready, when you're ready, sir. Thank you.
I don't know whether to start that time here or not. The first question now, Professor, the allegations that there are people landing illegally in remote places like the Delta, who are primarily from some of the most affected countries, and thus posing a risk. Well, we are monitoring landing strips, entry points, all of them. And one of the reasons why we have CAAB in the committee is to deal with that potential risk and others. It's not just in the Delta. The other places where you have landing capacity. And so we have not yet become aware that that is so for a fact, but we continuously reviewing the list of arrival places that we shut out for international travel that are designated so. But you know, an illegal act will always remain an illegal act if that is so, and the consequences will be quite severe if any are caught. But the policing of those areas is also going to be enhanced. The aviation policing, including policing of such airstrips. Messineo from Gibbs FM, the scanning of goods, I'll leave that to Minister of Investment and our technical experts to be able to speak to whether our scanners do scan for threat of virus or whether a virus can actually survive a shipment in a container. Kilosite, I think again. Ulisite, sorry. Mikiliki. From Yarona, nothing mentioned about animals. It's true. We haven't mentioned anything about animals because the theory, I have not gotten knowledge that it's proven of the origin of coronavirus as suggested in China will relate to meat market practices, both of species and habits, that we don't have. Rona, I think the most exotic thing close to an animal that people might eat, ke kgwate, kgopane. Le gale ke bontsala ke ba isha, na re itse. So ha ile gore kgwate ka recipe re itse gore tla kae go ba jimba kgwate. But the other ones are regular. Ke nama kgomo, dipholoholo of an antelope nature, bo phuti, bo tholo, kukama, etc., and goats and sheep, le kolobe. The ones that are alleged to may have caused this, and the way in which they are sold and traded, we don't have that. And that's primarily why I didn't speak to those kind of animals. What about the restlessness of kids? You should actually say the potential restlessness of kids. But I don't know if it's restlessness. Adults see it as restlessness. Kids are just kids. Kids are kids. We all did it. With or without corona, kids will be kids. With or without corona, they sleep at home. They have place of care. And in the event that our social services detect or are able to find out that a home environment is not ambient enough to contain a child, as they regularly contain them in the holidays, help will be extended. But the help might be quite injurious to the emotions of family members, because usually it's resisted. People want to keep their kids, they want to be with their kids. The kids want to be with their parents. But people have kids because they want to enjoy their kids and stay at home. So the best solution really is home is best. Now, it brings a question that you didn't ask, which is implied. Are homes able to look after their own children? That's what you're saying. Are homes ready for their own children? We'll find out. Because many of those kids were had quite deliberately, even though some may have not planned the exact time, but the planned activity resulted in the child. So, the poor teachers may also begin to be respected more. If they have to deal with so many children, and even before they come, you are crying on behalf of the parents, please start crying on behalf of teachers. What about prisoners, Keba? I was asking, the judiciary will respond in ways as guided. The social distancing, the preventative control measures, the cleaning, etc., etc. But, we are not advocating for a shutdown of the country. So our criminal justice system, civil justice system, those must work in the same way as our factories must work. Our media must work, And out of adversity sometimes, innovations break through to solve current problems. So this is the time to be innovative, whether in the media space, the policing space, the justice space, technology space, what have you. Be innovative. And many of you have had dreams of, or many people may have had dreams of starting e-businesses, for deliveries. You can advertise yourself and make sure you hold it to be true because you've studied research and you're actually applying it. You provide the safest deliveries of meals or other services. If you have a plumbing service, yours are compliant to everything to do with coronavirus prevention of transmission. So imagine when you need a plumber and there's an outbreak in the neighborhood. What do? Because you can't have, your bathroom toilets blocked when you have a pandemic like we do. We may have on our shores. So people have got to be creative in how they respond to this. What about, breathalyzers, time? From what I know from the police, I think these are disposable. Yes. Sorry, you will still be tummying. Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you. On this one, I also have to indicate I'm going to need technical advice, but to indicate also here that we've agreed with the Minister of Trade of South Africa that any changes in terms of the protocols and the processes at our borders, including screening of goods, will be communicated because the business community also needs to prepare. So whatever changes there will be communicated. We've also agreed that there's going to be new protocols in terms of what happens at the borders. We are engaging and those will be communicated. But in terms of the details of what we are doing in terms of the goods and everything, I think I'll need the technical people to respond to that. Thank you.
That will be the Director of Health Services, with the permission of the Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Masisi. Your Excellency, I think the concern that you are raising on handling of goods, His Excellency has actually raised this concern. The science says that in terms of corona, it can survive a few hours on the surfaces of goods or on surfaces in general, but it doesn't survive for long. But I think that's where the critical part that we are always driving home comes into play. Washing of hands. It might sound very mundane to wash hands, but it goes a long way in terms of protecting you and protecting others from contracting the disease that may be on the surfaces of goods. But as far as research is concerned, yes, the virus can survive for some time, but not long. But all the same, we need to always make washing hands a healthy habit. I'm going to take advantage that since I'm standing at the podium to also applaud Your Excellency, those in the front line, the health workers. They work day in and day out, long hours, trying to make sure that we are protected by testing people at the points of entry. And I want to give a special thank you to them. I thank you, Excellency.
Doctor, could you come over here? I don't see a camera behind me. I'd like you to be captured. They're all over DPS. Very good. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. With regards to the question on the surfaces, I'd like to point that we will be coming up with protocols on handling of goods. What I'd like to assure you is that, as Minister has said, the virus for surfaces such as clothes and all those things is a few hours. But recent evidence shows that it can also survive up to 3 days on stainless steel and copper. So the science is evolving. So we will be developing protocols surrounding buses because they have stainless steel, decontamination procedures, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency.
This might seem a small detail. Sharing of your phones. This is provoked by the question asked at the surface. And keyboards or anything with a surface. The obvious logical thing to do is to sanitize. But the best thing to do is not to share. And if you have kids who like to borrow when you stepped out, sanitize. Just sanitize. And don't share spectacles and glasses. I shall stop there.
Your Excellency and honorable ministers, including the PSP, this brings us to the end of this live transmission of the press conference. As His Excellency has said, he will keep you posted. He'll keep the nation informed right throughout. We are there, communications. I'm Andrew Nalena Sisinye, signing off. Let's remain seated whilst His Excellency leaves. Back to broadcasting.
Wetso ke jaaka tautona tswa sa tswa go buisa setšhaba ka bolwetse jono ja corona jo bo thagogile ko mahatsheng a bo China, bo UK le bo America hela jalo. Mme go tlhalosa hela jalo gore re re hatsela Botswana, we are on the verge of the coronavirus jaaka o itse gore mahatshe a tswana le Africa Borwa, Namibia le Zambia ba setse ba itemogetse jono mogare wa bolwetse jo. Go na le batho bangwe ba ba tshwereng ka jone di ka itsa bolwetse jwa coronavirus. Mme sengwe sa se tlhaloseng ke kgang ja social distancing gore tshwanetse re ele thoko e nne teng mo go rona ga rona le gore dikgang tsa dintsho manyalo le go eta jalo go tshwanetse re go emise ebile re letelle gore go nne le selekanyo sa 100 meters sa meter di ka tshwara pedi kgotsa e lengwe gare ga rona ga batho jaaka re le Batswana jalo le go tlhalosa gore dijo ga di na go letelelwa gore di nne teng ko dintshong le ko manyalong hela jalo. Mme go tlhalosa gape gore e le puso ba setsa ba dile dingwe ditshwetso ba bone madi a ka tshwara 30 million a ile gore ke yona ta dirisa mo nako ya gompieno go leka go kganela yone mogare wa coronavirus le gore mo nako ya gompieno ba sekasekile go bona gore ba ta thoka le madi a ka tshwara 500 million e le ona a ta bong a lebile gore madi onao a ta leka gore a dirisiwe go kganela one mogare wa coronavirus go tsena mo legatsheng leno le gore tsone di dirisiwa tsone sa di-testing kits tsone di tla le gore di nna teng. Itse gore mo nako ya gompieno sepatala sa Sekitumia Masire Teaching Hospital ke sone se thopileng gore se tana masisegetse bone ba le gore ba belela gore ba ka tswa ba na le mogare one wa coronavirus. Mme sengwe se nka se tlhalosang gore mo kgaolong yone Africa mahatso a ka tshwara 30 a setse a lemogile a bangwe batho ba one ba na le one mogare wa coronavirus. Sengwe gape se nka se supang gore mo legatsheng la Botswana go setse go thathubile batho ba ka tshwara 24 mme ba le 22 ba setse ba ntsi ba golotswe mme maduo a batho ba le bararo le ona sampe a sekasekwa mono. Mme sengwe se tautana se tlhalose gore legatshe la Botswana mo nako ya gompieno le na le bokgoni ja go thathoba kgotsa di-specimen di ka tshwara between 50 to 150 per day kgotsa ka letsatsi mo legatsheng la Botswana. Mme o itse ka kalo e le ditumalano tsa mahatshe ya jalo go tswa go lekgotlanele la botsogo la ditšhaba la WHO le tlhalosa gore dingwe tsa di-test di dirong kwano tshwanetse di ye ko legatsheng la Africa Borwa di ye go thathubiwa teng ko e le ditsamaiso tsa the health protocol jaaka di tsamaisiwang ka teng mo legatsheng ka bophara. Mme sengwe se o ta itse gore tautona sa gatetse gore go tshwanetse go tana le di-regular briefing ka ba na le seabe ba botsogo le go ruta setšhaba ka mogare one wa coronavirus gore legatshe la Botswana kgotsa Batswana ba seka ba iphitlhela ba le gore le bone ba tsene ke mogare one ka go tlhoka go itse kgotsa go tlhoka dikitso tse di maleba. Mme go ta itsegela gore jalo mahelo a tshwana le a prison tota go tana mo go emise gore batho ba go lekola batho ba go dikgolegolong mo nako ya gompieno e le go leka gone gore go leka go hokotsa go kgomana kgotsa go dira mo go teng social distancing gareng ga batho ba legatshe lene la Botswana. Mme o ta itse gore mo nako ya gompieno tautona o tlhalositse gore ga go ise go nne le kgang kgotsa le a case e le gore e teng mo legatsheng la Botswana ya motho yo o nang le mogare wa coronavirus konte ga batho ba le gore ba kile ba belela mme ba thathobiwa mme ya re morago ba ntshiwa go supa e le gore bone tota ga ba na mogare o wa coronavirus. Mme sengwe sa tautona se tlhalose o tlhalosela gore mo legatsheng la Botswana is not yet a national disaster. Mo nako ya gompieno seemo sa se siame hele sa se gateletsa gore setšhaba tshwanetse se itshireletse a tlhalosa ka kgang ya gore metsi le molora ke one tota o ka babalang batho ba legatshe la Botswana gore a re diriseng metsi le molora go tlhapa ka nako nngwe le nngwe ga mmogo le go dirisa di-sanitizer. Mme sengwe se le gore o se buile se se ka tsang gore ke seo se se potlana ka go tlhalosa gore re hokotsa kgotsa re emise go amogela megala a ditlheka kgotsa di-keyboard ba berekang jalo gore hele gore a di dirisa dirise mo go teng di-sanitizer gore le ka gore di phephagatse go kganela one mogare wa gore wa coronavirus gore o se ka wa nama wa name mme gape kgang e nngwe e le gore tautona o amile ka kgang ya gore dikgwebo ba tla nama ba tswela ba go seka-seka gore dikgwebo tsone di ka thusiwa ka tsela e ntseng ja ga re tshwanetse di ka thusiwa ka gore e rile gongwe maabane ka buisa le mongwe a tlhalosa gore mahelo a dikgwebo kgotsa a di hotela mono a se tala thegotse ke madi a kana mo 6 million ka beke hela e le ka kgang ile ya bolwetse ja coronavirus ka gore batho ba ne ba swetsa ba ka tla mo lefatsheng la Botswana go ta gore bala ko le bona ga ba sela ba le teng mo nako ya gompieno mme sengwe se nka se tlhalosang gore ene tona wa botsogo ene Dr. Lemogang Kwabe o tlhalositse gore le bone ba setse ba tsere ditsetana tse ne di tswa ke lefatshe la China tse e le gore ke tse gore ke detection reporting and isolation ka tabua la gape detection reporting and isolation gore ke tsone tse di ka seemo se ka thusang gore e le hatse la Botswana kgone go itsetela kgotsa go itsetsepela se ka tsena ke mogare wa coronavirus a tlhalosa gore ke sengwe se le gore se botlhokwa mme gape a ba tlhalosa gore e le ba botsogo ba ta nela setšhaba flu shot e le gore e ta hiwa batho mo lefatsheng la Botswana jaaka o itse gore e ntse hiwa ko mahelong a dipatela tse di ikemetseng ka nosi mme gompieno puso e tsere tshwetso gore yaanong e ta neela flu shot mo setšhaba mahala jaaka e tlhalositse mme tona wa peeletso papadi le madilo mme Peggy Stramene o tlhalositse hela gore e le mahatshe ba peeletso ba setse ba dumalane ba buisantse gore dithoto tse di tang kwa le tshwana dijo mo lefatsheng la Botswana tsone di tla nama di tla tswela hela di ta mo lefatsheng leno se sa ba se tshwane se etsege se ipotsa gore se tla nama se tla tsaya ka dijo go se jalo mme sengwe se nka batlang go se tlhalosa ke gore go na le kgang ya mogala gore ope o belela gore o ka tswana le a go thola go tsana le bolwetse mogara wa corona o tshwanetse gore a tshware mogala wa 997 kgotsa sepatale se se gaufi kgotsa a re a tsena mo lapeng ba re koko jaaka tautona a bua gore ke na le flu mme seo jalo motswana weso itamelegela ka tsela ntse jalo jaaka tautona a na le kutsa setšhaba gore a re itlhokomeleng a re thape matsogo ka molora go ithela hela jalo go bona thuso e ke ba botsogo mme mo kwa gompieno mo tsa tsona ke ta ema gone ga mme Botswana television yone e ta tswela ka dithulaganyo tse di galoganeng go itsisa setšhaba le go ruta setšhaba ka mogare ono wa coronavirus go tswa mo go na le ba di ka nna ke bidiwa on title body.